explanation. Welcome back to Global Current Lens, where headlines are decoded, strategies are exposed, and the truth about global events comes into focus. Today, we turn to one of the most volatile stories shaping our time. The United States has outlined its latest plan for Gaza, and Hamas has issued its sharp response. But beneath the headlines, something is missing. Certain details, omitted or downplayed, carry consequences that may alter the future of this conflict. Explanation. What was said, what was left unsaid, and why it matters, that's what we're unpacking tonight. Explanation, quick context snapshot. To understand why this moment is so critical, we need to set the scene. The war in Gaza has stretched on with devastating costs. Civilian casualties have soared, infrastructure lies in ruins, and international pressure has mounted on all sides to end the bloodshed. The United States, acting both as mediator and strategic player, has floated a new proposal. On paper, it aims to balance humanitarian relief with security concerns. But for Hamas, the political and armed movement that governs Gaza, this plan touches the very core of their survival and legitimacy. And so the response came quickly, sharply, explanation, and with words that echo across the region. Yet, as often in geopolitics, what is not said can sometimes reveal more than the statement itself. The immediate event, the latest U.S. plan presented in recent weeks, outlines several key elements: a phased ceasefire, monitored aid corridors into Gaza, explanation, a prisoner exchange framework, and a roadmap that would eventually place the territory under a restructured Palestinian Authority. Explanation with heavy regional and international oversight. From Washington's perspective, this plan is an attempt to break the cycle of war. It offers relief for civilians while promising security guarantees for Israel. Hamas's response, however, framed the proposal in very different terms. The Nation, the group's spokesperson, denounced aspects of the plan as an attempt to strip Gaza of its resistance, arguing that the United States was dressing up political capitulation as humanitarian concern. While they welcomed the idea of more aid and prisoner exchanges, explanation, Hamas rejected the vision of governance being handed over to what they view as an externally controlled authority. But here's where the omissions stand out. Hamas did not fully reject negotiations. They did not spell out alternatives to the plan. And notably, they remained silent on the long-term political horizon, such as whether they would accept any role in a future Palestinian unity government. This silence is telling. It suggests a tactical response, leaving room for leverage in future talks while avoiding outright acceptance or rejection. For the U.S., the silence on certain points may actually be a sign of opportunity. For Israel, it may be seen as ambiguity bordering on threat, and for ordinary Palestinians, it leaves a void, an absence of clarity about who will govern their lives once the fighting stops. Historical and political context. To grasp why this plan is so contentious, we need to revisit the deeper history. Gaza has been under Hamas control since 2007, following a bitter and bloody split from the Palestinian Authority. Since then, the enclave has endured multiple wars with Israel, a punishing blockade, explanation, and an intermittent attempts at ceasefires that rarely lasted. The United States has traditionally aligned with Israel's security concerns, while European and regional actors have pushed harder for humanitarian concessions. Hamas, meanwhile, has relied on outside support from Iran, Qatar, and sympathetic networks across the region to sustain both its governance and military wing. Every peace plan in the past 2 decades has stumbled on 2 recurring obstacles. First, Israel's demand for full demilitarization of Gaza. Second, Hamas's insistence on retaining the right to armed resistance alongside political legitimacy within the Palestinian landscape. The new U.S. plan repeats this dilemma. The roadmap envisions Gaza under the Palestinian Authority, potentially backed by Arab states like Egypt, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia. For Washington, this represents a step stability. For Hamas, it reads as erasure, an attempt to sideline the group entirely, despite its enduring influence and control. But history also shows us that Hamas rarely issues a simple no. Instead, it plays for time, reshapes negotiations, and uses ambiguity as leverage. Their current response fits this pattern, rejecting key parts of the plan while leaving doors open. Explanation, waiting to see whether battlefield dynamics or international pressure will tilt in their favor. This isn't just about governance, it's about survival. For Hamas, agreeing to such terms could mean dismantling their power base. For Israel and the U.S., explanation, insisting on these terms may be the only way to secure a future where rockets no longer fly across the border. The tension between these objectives defines the present standoff. Global reactions the world has been watching closely, and reactions to both the U.S. plan and Hamas's response reveal sharp divides. In Europe, governments like France and Germany cautiously welcomed Washington's initiative, emphasizing humanitarian relief and the need to prevent further escalation. Yet European diplomats also noted that without buy-in from Hamas, no plan can truly stabilize Gaza. Their statements read as polite support, but with skepticism underneath. In the Arab world, the picture is more complicated. Explanation: Egypt has long feared instability spilling across its border and wants a solution that ends Hamas's autonomy without causing chaos. Qatar, one of Hamas's main financial backers, publicly supported humanitarian corridors, but quietly signaled concerns about sidelining the group politically. Saudi Arabia, explanation: in the midst of recalibrating ties with both the U.S. and Israel, played its cards close, endorsing the broad idea of reconstruction but avoiding specifics. Israel's reaction was firm. Officials welcomed the American plan as a step toward restoring deterrence and ensuring Gaza cannot become a launching pad for attacks. However, they also signaled impatience, arguing that Hamas's rejectionist tone proved the group cannot be part of any future governance arrangement. At the United Nations, debates grew heated. Russia and China accused Washington of pushing a plan that preserved Israeli dominance while ignoring Palestinian self-determination. Western states countered that the plan offered the only practical path to stopping civilian suffering. Public opinion worldwide fractured along predictable lines. Capitals, protests demanded an end to the war and more pressure on Israel. In Arab and Muslim majority nations, demonstrations highlighted solidarity with Gaza and condemned the U.S. role as biased. The global reaction shows a paradox. Everyone agrees the status quo is unsustainable, but no consensus exists on what comes next. And in that gap, violence continues. Economic and strategic stakes behind the politics lies the hard reality of economics and strategy. Gaza's humanitarian crisis is immense. Hospitals collapsed, power grids destroyed, and hundreds of thousands displaced. Any reconstruction effort would require billions of dollars, international coordination, and years of stability. For the United States, investing political capital in Gaza is not just about peace. It's about maintaining credibility in the Middle East. Explanation: with rising competition from China and Russia, Washington cannot afford to appear ineffective. The plan signals that America wants to remain the central broker, even if success is uncertain. For Israel, the strategic stakes are existential. Allowing Hamas to retain military capacity risks repeating the cycle of war. But fully eradicating Hamas could drag Israel into years of occupation and insurgency, an outcome they desperately want to avoid. The U.S. plan, therefore, offers a potential middle ground. Hamas weakened, Gaza rebuilt, and the Palestinian Authority reinstated. For Hamas, the stakes are survival. Explanation: losing control of Gaza would mean the collapse of its governance project. Explanation: yet agreeing to demilitarization would gut its claim as the defender of Palestinian resistance. Both options carry risks that could fracture the movement internally. Actors like Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar. Gaza represents a test of influence. Whoever shapes its future will hold sway over Palestinian politics for years. The economic prize, contracts, reconstruction funds, political leverage is significant, and for ordinary Palestinians, the stakes are most tangible: survival, dignity, and the hope of living without war. The question is whether they will be governed by Hamas, the Palestinian Authority, or some hybrid administration imposed from outside. Each path carries profound consequences for daily life. Possible futures: the path forward is uncertain, but three scenarios stand out. Scenario 1, de-escalation. Explanation: in this outcome, Hamas engages in talks, accepting parts of the U.S. plan while negotiating amendments. The group could agree to a phased ceasefire, gradual easing of the blockade, and partial integration into a restructured Palestinian political body. International aid begins to flow, and while tensions remain, the guns fall silent. This scenario hinges on pragmatism, on Hamas calculating that survival through political adaptation is better than destruction through war. Scenario 2, limited conflict. Here, Hamas rejects the core of the U.S. plan but avoids full-scale escalation. Skirmishes and rocket fire continue intermittently. Israel responds with limited strikes, but neither side pushes the conflict into total war. Aid trickles in through negotiated corridors, and Gaza remains in limbo. Explanation: this is the muddle-through scenario. Suffering continues, but catastrophe is avoided. It is the most familiar and perhaps the most likely explanation given the region's history of unresolved cycles. Scenario 3 escalation. In the worst-case path, Hamas doubles down, rejecting the plan outright while intensifying attacks. Israel, backed by U.S. diplomatic cover, launches expanded operations aimed at crushing Hamas once and for all. Civilian casualties soar, regional tensions spike, and actors like Iran or Hezbollah may be drawn more directly into the fray. Reconstruction becomes impossible, and Gaza sinks deeper into devastation. This scenario would redraw the region's strategic map and could spark wider instability beyond Palestine and Israel. The choice between these futures will not be decided by words alone, but by the interplay of battlefield dynamics, international diplomacy, and political survival. Tension peak and big question. The U.S. has put forward a plan that, at least on paper, promises both relief and security. Explanation. Hamas has answered with a response that reveals just enough to maintain leverage, but conceals the deeper truth of what they are willing to sacrifice. The omissions on governance, on disarmament, on political vision are as revealing as their words. And so the tension rises. Explanation. Will Gaza's future be decided at the negotiating table or on the battlefield? Will this plan join the long graveyard of peace proposals, or could it signal the first crack in the wall of endless war? The stakes are not just for Gaza or Israel or Washington, they are for the entire region and by extension the wider world. Because in an interconnected age, conflict here echoes everywhere, from global markets to international security. Explanation. As this story unfolds, one truth is certain: the path ahead is fraught with risk, shaped by what leaders choose to reveal and what they choose to conceal. The omissions in Hamas's response remind us that silence can be as strategic as speech. Explanation. The question that remains is whether those silences will create space for compromise or push the region into yet another spiral of destruction. What do you think? Is the U.S. plan a genuine attempt at resolution or simply another blueprint doomed to fail? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Explanation. And don't forget to subscribe to Global Current Lens as we continue to decode the strategies, expose the patterns, explanation, and bring clarity to the world's most pressing conflicts.